Hi, it's Bodine Victoria from the Bahamas, and you're watching Elliot Kelly TV, inspiring, motivating, and educating one future billionaire at a time.
Everybody's got a dream. Everybody's got a goal. What's the plan? Your plan has got to be clear, concise, compelling, consistent, and committed. You've got to have a plan.
Don't go to bed without a plan of how you're going to handle the next day.
You have to work at it every day. You have to plan.
Productivity is never accident. I want you to understand that it's not going to happen by luck.
Success is cause and effect, not magic luck or magic fairy dust. Success is easy. It's making a plan and executing the plan every day. Make a plan, work the plan. Make a plan, work the plan. And whenever the plan doesn't work, you change the plan. That's called failure. It's called learning a lesson. It's called adjusting. If you do the work and you do it for a long enough time, you will be successful. Period.
Whatever it is you're bold enough to dream, if you are intentional and deliberate about it, every single day, if you do a little, you're going to wake up one day and your dreams are going to be a reality.
The shortcut is a lie. The hack doesn't get you there. And if you want to take the easy road, it won't take you to where you want to be. To reach goals and overcome obstacles and be the best version of you possible will not happen by itself. It will not happen cutting corners, taking shortcuts, or looking for the easy way. There is no easy way. There is only hard work, late nights, early mornings, practice, rehearsal, repetition, study, sweat, blood, toil, frustration, and discipline. Discipline, the root of all good qualities, the driver of daily execution. Discipline defeats the infinite excuses that say, not today, not now, I need a rest, I'll do it tomorrow. There is only one way, the way of discipline.
There's power in consistency. There's power in doing something over and over and over and over again. There's power in practice.
And your problem is you are on beast mode Monday, Wednesday, Friday. 10 a.m. to 12, beast mode, 1 to 5.
You keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping.
I challenge you. I challenge you to make up the gap. I challenge you to go from average. I challenge you to go from good. I challenge you to go from great. And I challenge you to be phenomenal. I challenge you to live in beast mode, because beast mode makes more money than average does. Period.
When you are a true hunter, you don't go by time. You go by the gazelle. You don't hunt from 8 to 3. Why? Because the gazelle may not be open from 8 to 3. You hunt until you get a gazelle, and you don't stop until you get one. And then you get another, and then you get another, and you get another.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's the girl Wendy, Miss What You Know About It from the Bahamas, and you are watching Elliot Kelly TV.
If you are a Camry is perfectly okay.
Yes.
Don't market yourself as a Rolls Royce.
Yes.
Because what's going to happen is either we get to the interview phase and then I'm disappointed, or let's say that I'm not talented enough to pick up on that in the interview phase. When you hit the organization, there's going to be a gap between my expectation and your performance.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Elliot Kelly TV. I'm your host, Elliot Kelly. I have with us Mr. Wellington Hepburn. Mr. Wellington Hepburn is coming to us straight from the Bahamas. We're going to be talking today about the impact of strategic HR management. So it was only fitting to have our strategic HR management expert in-house on air today. Welcome to Elliot Kelly TV.
Thank you, Elliot, for having me. Greatly appreciate it.
Certainly. We appreciate your time. We know we're both busy, so thank you for cutting out some time to be with us. Tell us your story and how you got involved in HR management.
Wow, that's a good question. So I started in HR maybe about 16 years ago, and I originally started in accounts, and I did my bachelor's in accounts, worked at one of the big 4 or 5 firms, and I liked what I did, but I didn't love it, you know? And I remember one of my supervisors at the time, she said, you know, Hepburn, you're really good with people. Have you considered HR? And if you know the HR path and history, then HR was viewed more as of a female profession. So I said, I'll try it out, see where it goes. So I started as a junior analyst and fell in love, Elliot. And now I'm here almost 15, 20 years later.
Certainly. Thank you, and welcome again to the show. Tell us what is the most challenging aspect of strategic HR management that you found locally? We know you've expanded internationally, but just tell us locally first, what are you noticing?
One of the biggest things about strategic HR management is helping the business, one, to understand that HR is a strategic partner. So the role of HR has changed and evolved over the last 10 or so years. So all of that administrative back-end paper pushing, that has a role, and that's an aspect of HR, but HR is a partner to help you maximize the talent that you have in your organization. When you look at financial statements, when you look at bottom line, the single most expensive line item on a company's budget is its people. The money that we put behind supporting staff. So one of the big challenges I see is HR leaders being able to make that switch and have the business appreciate the value that they have to bring. The second thing is also to help HR leaders to develop the necessary skill set. There's a required skill set that you need to show impact. I always tell my team, and I think I say it almost every time I speak, is that HR can know the value that we bring, but there's a difference, Elliot, between knowing and showing. And when we partner with the business, we need to show. So an example of showing is a conversation like this. So Mr. Kelly, I've looked at your HR data for the last 3 quarters, and I see that your area has an attrition problem. A lot of people leave. They tend to leave within the first 2 to 5 years. And I think it's attributable to these 3 factors. Can we sit down and meet and discuss? Because I have a remediation plan that I think can work for you in terms of building greater engagement and longer term retention in your area. That's very different than just saying, Mr. Kelly, I'm filling your vacancies and I'll continue to source candidates. The whole value proposition of the conversation shifts when HR realizes the value that they bring. So it's helping the business to see HR in a different light, and then it's helping HR leaders to know how to speak in terms of the business. When you sit around the C-suite, when you sit with executives, they're talking numbers, figures, market penetration, customer satisfaction, revenue optimization, process efficiency. So we now need to think about how do we frame talent in light of adding to those things that are important to the business.
Certainly. Thank you so much. There's so much to go in there. I mean, you just dove right in, and I appreciate that. The fact that you're acting as an advocate for moving HR from the traditional way of thinking, as in, when people thought of you've been called to HR, you're like, ooh, but now you can be called to HR for the new training that will take you to the next level and take the company to the next level. What are some practical ways, other than what you've shared, that you're helping to inspire this change? How you're developing that momentum?
I would say top 3 things. One is to create awareness. When you look at all of the HR and business research right now, any of the big name research companies, Gartner, any of the ones in the US, Canada, UK, they all talk about how HR needs to have an evolution and switch in skill set. So the first thing is to create awareness as to what skills are needed. The first is HR analytical skills, and closely behind that is being able to sell, being able to sell your position and show why there's incremental or additional value in the skills that you're trying to develop. I would say the second thing is to start small. Some HR leaders, some HR organizations get concerned with not knowing how to start, but you need to start.
Yes.
You have to start somewhere. So when you think about the journey of becoming a strategic HR leader, the first step is in communication. Make sure that you understand the businesses that you support, and make sure that you communicate with those leaders. Elliot, I can think clearly, and I won't call any company names, but I can think clearly about when I worked for a particular company locally, and to better understand their roles, I actually used to jump on the trucks with technicians and just spend time with them,
Yes.
understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
Nothing is better than seeing it firsthand. So I would say gain a deep understanding of your business and how you will support your business. And then I think the third point is to be able to measure for impact. So sometimes being in HR, we talk a lot about how we feel and what we think.
Yes.
And there's a time and place for feelings and thoughts, but there's also a time and place for measurement and empirical data. And I think one of the things I do through Wellington Hepburn International and also other roles that I hold in the local and international community is helping team members know how to measure for impact. If I am sitting with a CFO, I need to speak the language of the CFO.
Of course.
If I'm sitting with a chief marketing officer, CMO, I now need to be able to adjust my language, present KPIs that matter to them. It's not a one size fit all. And in some of my training sessions, I talk about how we also need to minimize what I call HREs.
Mm-hmm.
We in HR, just like any profession, we have our own terminology and things that we use, but we have to know when to scale back on that, because the business sometimes cares a little less about that and more about how that connects to business operations. So, for example, instead of, if I go into a meeting and I'm meeting with my operations team, I'm going to talk to them about operational KPIs that relate to them first, and then I'll connect how talent supports that. So you just have to know, how. So I would say the awareness, I would say knowing where to get started, and then also knowing how to measure for long-term impact.
Thank you very much. We're from the school of thought of that Peter Drucker philosophy as well, where we're measuring everything. Our whole goal setting and our whole goal achievement is based on measurement. But I just want to digress a bit. Before we go forward, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you move the transition from traditional to contemporary and where we're going with the future of HR. I just want to dive into how you were able to look at not just the symptoms of we have a problem at this company, where you're actually looking at what the root causes of those problems were. Give us an example of when you were able, without calling any names or companies like you stated, give us an example of how you were able to articulate what the root causes were, as opposed to looking at the symptoms of attrition or drift in a retail environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So one example that immediately comes to mind is I worked with a consulting company where we dealt with sick leave. So said company reached out to me to help them develop a solution to understand their sick leave problem. When we built out the solution, we were able to monetize and show that the organization was losing a minimum of $1 million per year just based on sick leaves that were not being properly managed by the policy.
Wow.
So when you talk about the symptom versus the problem, it all goes back to your root cause analysis. And I think it all goes back to the 5 W's, what, why, when, and I guess an H, which would be how. It all comes back to the probing questions that you ask. Let me give you an example. For that same company, we had a situation where one employee appeared to be taking random unauthorized sick leaves. So when you looked at it on a one-off basis, that appeared to be the problem. The problem wasn't really that, though. The problem was the fact of twofold issue. One, their supervisor didn't enforce the policy, so the employee was allowed to continue doing that over time because the policy had some repercussions that the supervisor did not adhere to. And then when we started to layer in the granularity of the data, what we saw is that this particular employee was actually taking sick leaves more around Christmas and holidays and all these other type of things.
You got a trend.
Yeah, you got it. So one of the things we have to bear in mind is not to focus so much on the tree, but to focus on the forest. I think sometimes HR leaders get a little too much into the minutia, and the minutia has its place, but you need to balance the minutia with the overall. So when we did that for that project, we were able to identify individuals who were cheating the system, who were tying sick days to holidays and vacation. We saw where there were also, just based on the policy, that there must have been collusion with some managers and supervisors to try and cheat the system because they knew that we didn't have measurements in place to analyze it.
Of course.
So now they know they could go 3 months with doing this, take a month off, and then do another 3 months because we won't pick it up, based on recency. So when we think about the whole problem versus symptom, we need to know how to probe and dig deeply. And I think it's the 4 W's with the H being how. And it's also knowing how to layer in different types of data and types of analysis to create a complete picture. Sometimes we look at one tree here, another tree here, another tree here, and we don't bring it together and see, well, hold on. If we have 50 different trees, this might be becoming a forest. So we need to be able to do that.
Thank you. We said we'll go back into the future of HR. And there is a trend now, not just in the Bahamas, but internationally, where businesses are now realizing the value proposition of the individual themselves taking ownership. So if Elliot is working for a company, KFC, Elliot is acting as the proprietor in the interest of the business and trying to manage that with his own interests as well, assuming that the interests of the business are his interests and his interests are the business's interests. How do you feel about empowerment's role in HR strategy?
Empowerment's huge. Empowerment is huge. I think that the only way that organizations can achieve long-term strategic, tactical, and operational excellence is through empowering people. There's so much that employees can give when given the opportunity. I remember working on a major performance management revamp for a company that I did some work in town with. And I remember clearly, as a part of this performance management revamp, that one of their summer students came up with the logo and the design for this whole new process and system within the organization. So now you have a summer student who was there for 3 months, and quite literally, their legacy and their impact will live on in the organization forever because the organization decided to get their feedback. So it's just so much that you can do when you engage individuals and engage them with good intentions and empower them to really make some decisions. I think HR has a responsibility to make sure that we set up systems in the organization to allow ideas to come forth, to allow autonomy in implementing those ideas, to allow freedom to make mistakes. Elliot, I kid you not, and I don't wanna go on too long on this point, but I remember about 15 years ago when I first started in HR, I made a mistake, and I can remember it as though it was yesterday, and it costed my area that time $15,000. And I remember my then supervisor, who I reported to, he called me in her office. You can see she was frustrated. And she said, Hepburn, I see potential in you, so I'm not going to give up on you. Some of my peers, I want to be very clear, some of my peers are saying that this is a gross action that you took per our policy and you should be terminated. And she was right. When I checked the policy, I should have been. But then she looked at me and she said, I believe in you. This is a mistake. Count it as learning because I see potential in you. So we have to engage team members, let them run with their ideas, let them have the freedom to make mistakes and not be victimized, because only when we truly engage and truly get what's going on in here, the team members, can we make our organizations better, faster, further, longer, stronger as one of my coaches would say.
Thank you. That segues perfectly into personal development's role in HR strategy. Do you see that as an upcoming trend as well?
I see that as a huge upcoming trend. Right now, I'm partnering with an organization on a major performance management revamp. And one of the things I say is that if you don't, when I speak to the employees, is that if you don't evolve, you become irrelevant, period.
Sure.
Now, in some of my workshops, you know, some participants say that I use absolute language, and I do, because some principles are absolute.
They're timeless, yes.
Timeless. If you don't evolve, you become irrelevant. I remember another company that I worked for. The moment, Elliot, that we introduced a product to the market, we introduced it knowing that it was obsolescent. Because the next version, the next iteration was already in design and more than likely in production.
Certainly.
So the pace at which business is going, team members have to personally take a stake in their development. And I believe that organizations need to provide systems and avenues, formally and informally, to allow team members to grow. I am a senior leader at a local bank in town, a senior HR leader. And one of the things we do for my team is we have training hours that we allow each team member to have each week, you know. So, you know, you could take 2 hours a week and just study something that's interesting to you. Doesn't have to be related to your job. I would like for it to be related to your job, so that there may be some discussion there, but I'm not going to prohibit you from just learning something that might be interesting, because you never know how it could benefit the organization. So personal development is huge.
If I could interject, because I know you weren't, but just a quick piggyback on that. I think it's quite important that how you said that it's not what you're studying, it is the process of studying it. That is really what you're trying to impart. And so I think that's really great and really, really key. Continue, sorry.
It's the acumen behind knowing that you must develop yourself constantly. You know, there have been some professionals who've told me, I'm 38, you know, I've gotten a bunch of different awards, spoken on the international stage, done some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, one person said to me, you know, you can just chill out. And I said, I will. But I need for you to understand that every 6 months, it's still an educational milestone for me. Because I know that information changes and I have to stay on top of my game in order to be excellent and to support my clients and my company. So
I think HR is taking a new look at that. In addition to listening more to what the employees are saying, I think HR has now taken on their responsibility for finding training solutions that won't be obsolescent or obsolete at the point of application. Because imagine the training session takes so long, and then you come out of training and the person has to kind of find their feet. So they're understanding the training cycle and the application or implementation cycle, because this may be for workflow. This may be one of the workflow packages, which takes time. I work with a consultancy with internet firms. So definitely by time something launches, it can be, the competitor can come up with something or two things that have the cutting edge compared to it. What do you think has been your greatest achievement? You've spoken about some of your achievements and moving to the next level and the next level.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick a milestone, one of the biggest ones for me would be speaking on the international stage. So last year I spoke to about 900 to 1,000 HR professionals at the SHRM 2019 annual conference in Vegas. So that was great, based on a model that I built and that I'm writing a book on. And this year I have the opportunity to go back and speak at the 2020 conference. So that's a major milestone. But, you know, in and above the awards, for me, what it is, Elliot, is just, it's impacting lives. You know, it's about making people better with the gifts that I have. So that's what it is for me.
Thank you. Wellington, I think when you and I say that and other thought leaders say it, people say, oh, yeah, he's in it for the money, or he looks like he's doing well. But the doing well does, for me and you, as you're saying, it does come from that sense of that aha moment. For in you, it'd be either your vendor or the clients. So
Mm-hmm.
it's quite cool. For me, it's either if I'm helping someone write their next book, teaching someone how to speak or communicate, or maybe just helping someone with a CV, which leads us
Yes.
on to our next debate. Where are you with the video CV or video resume, as you would say in the Caribbean, or the traditional CV or resume? Which one do you give more weighting?
Oh boy, wow. That's that's an interesting one. I was prepared for a lot of questions. I wasn't prepared for that one. So let me tell you what I think. So I would say that it depends on the organization, it depends on the culture, and it also depends on the society. So some cultures that I've worked in and done consulting in Africa, India, Sweden, some of these other cultures, it's the norm for video resumes and photos on your resume and those type of things. On the Western side of the world, I think that the traditional resume is still leading. And the reason why I think the traditional resume for me still has more impact is whether we like to say it or not, Elliot, I think sometimes we have biases.
Yes.
And if we don't allow a candidate to objectively promote themselves first, we can have biases that may hinder our ability to see past certain things before they can show us who they really are.
Yes.
So I think an objective black and white, paper-based resume is the way to go. Now, I think from the candidate side, candidates need to know how to prepare it and best represent themselves. We know that research shows that the average paper-based resume is looked at for 15 seconds by a recruiter. I do it myself. If something doesn't jump out, I'm on to the next one. But in the local Caribbean context, since this is my primary locale, I would say that paper-based resumes are for sure still the preference, but I do see an increase in more video-based resumes with photos, and those type of things.
Certainly, thank you. Give us a few practical tips for our candidates who may be watching the show and they're preparing for their interviews. What are HR strategic officials looking for, administrative staff looking for when they're combing through thousands of CVs or resumes?
Oh my gosh, listen. I worked at a past company. We got 8,000 resumes a month. So good question. The first is format your resume properly. So just please make sure that your resume, when I pick it up, it feels like it's something that I want to read. There are some resumes I pick up and 2 seconds later, I'm like, I'm not spending time on that because it just doesn't even feel engaging for me to read. So do research online. There's a lot of free collateral now. There's a lot of MOOC courses, massively open courses online that you can read on how to properly format a resume. So I would say formatting is key. I would say also to show an interest area that you are interested in. This may sound strange, but I can pick up a resume and I can feel or read the passion that a candidate has based on the way that they represent themselves. And some resumes are just lackluster, and I can tell that the candidate has no passion. So you want to make sure that you're clear in terms of what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? At least have an idea. Now, some HR leaders may say, well, some candidates may not know, and that's valid. If you're fresh out of high school, you might not know.
Yes.
If you are reevaluating your career, you might not know. But at least give me an idea. What I don't like to see is I would like to take on any role within your organization so that I can add value. Yeah. That doesn't help me.
Yes. When they said speculative, they didn't mean speculative.
Yeah. So, give me some direction. And then the third thing I would say is don't oversell yourself. Some candidates try to oversell themselves. If you are a Camry is perfectly okay.
Yes.
Don't market yourself as a Rolls Royce.
Yes.
Because what's going to happen is either we get to the interview phase and then I'm disappointed, or let's say that I'm not talented enough to pick up on that, in the interview phase, when you hit the organization, there's going to be a gap between my expectation and your performance, which is worse. I prefer to know that you're a Camry and expect Camry performance. No sales promotion for Toyota, but I'm just using an example. Than to think that you're a Rolls Royce and then have this big decline in expectations.
Wait, we live, you know.
Oh, this is Dr. James Dollars from SBTV News, and we are here live in the streets. Everyone is talking about Penny's death. Penny dead, y'all. Penny is dead. The 1 cent will soon be extinct. If you don't know, now you know. You're 2020 to get rid of all your 1 cents. If you take, this baby is not. If you expect to get some value from it. But right now, we're gonna have an exclusive interview with a representative of the 1 cent right here on SBTV News. And remember, if you get your 1 cent, go get your money for that man. Here's the interview.
Bro, what you gotta realize, right? Hey, we ain't never do nobody nothing, babe. We ain't do nobody nothing, babe. Me, this my woman right there, babe. Like, we been together 2015, bro. And we ain't never do nothing. All right, baby, it's all right. It's all right. And, babe, no, what you gotta realize, it ain't just us, bro. It's all us. All us, babe. But you all forgetting, babe. A penny a day, you know, babe. A penny a day. This my brothers, like them in the front. They joins us, but we still love them, and we accept them. Why can't you all accept? I leave you. Where you going? Baby, I need to take care of me. Rich nigga ain't figure out my time. This is too much. She leave me for 5 cents. She say, you gotta take care of me. And she leave me for 5 cents, bro. 5 cents. Penny a day. We never do nobody nothing. Help us. Help us. Remember the 99-cent breakfast. That was us. Help us. Please.
What does the future hold for you, Wellington?
The future holds for me, I think, more partnering with organizations. I'm also the local president-elect for the local HR association, so I think continuing to build the strength of our local HR leaders. I also want to do some more speaking locally and internationally. And in the next year to 3 years, you should see maybe about 2 or 3 books come out on some models that I've built.
Oh, awesome. That's awesome. We're looking forward to having you come back on the show and share about the launches of your book. And if you do need any assistance, we have persons in place for that as well. We just want to drop a quote here. Either you run the day or the day runs you, and that's by Jim Rohn. Thank you for all those persons who came and participated in our launch in Paris. That was just super. And if you haven't already, make sure you get the Eye of the Needle, The Cost of Success. It is still on sale at $17.99. Make sure you can email us at EloitLKelly@gmail.com. Remind us how to get in contact with you again, Wellington.
Absolutely. WellingtonHepburn@gmail.com. The phone number also is area code 242-376-1817, or you can get in contact with me through my website, which is a placeholder for now, whepburninternational.com.
Certainly. Any shout outs to anyone out there, Wellington?
Shout outs. Wow. Well, I mean, I'm a married man, so I would be remiss if I don't shout out my wife and kids. So I want to give a quick shout out to my wife, Rose, and my 2 kids, Tiana and Miles, for their continued support. A lot of people see the outcome, but they see the process. So I appreciate who they are and what they allow me to do.
Awesome. That's great stuff. Thank you again, Wellington, for taking some time out to be with us. I love the tie that you're rocking today. Our persons have been pinging down in the bottom, so you have a lot of questions coming through, and I'm sure you'll have your emails as well pinging back at you. So thank you. Never lose your passion. You're watching Elliot Kelly TV with Wellington Hepburn.
What's your definition of greatness?
I think the definition of greatness is to inspire the people next to you. My parents were great. You know, growing up, you know, they instilled in me the importance of imagination, of curiosity. And understanding that, okay, if you want to accomplish something, I'm not just going to sit here and say, yes, you can do whatever you want. Yes, you can, but you have to also put in the work to get there. You grow up as a kid thinking that all things are possible if you put in the work to do it. You know, you grow up having that fundamental belief. My father was really influential at a really critical time where I had a summer where I played basketball when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And here I come playing and I don't score 1 point the entire summer. I scored not a free throw, nothing, not a lucky shot, not a breakaway layup, 0 points. And I remember crying about it and being upset about it. And my father just gave me a hug and said, listen, whether you score 0 or score 60, I'm gonna love you no matter what. That is the most important thing that you can say to a child. That gives me all the confidence in the world to fail. But to hell with that, I'm scoring 60. From there, I just went to work. And I stayed with it, and I kept practicing, kept practicing, kept practicing. I think that's when the idea of understanding a long-term view became important. Because I wasn't going to catch these kids in a week. I wasn't going to catch them in a year, right? So that's when I sat down and said, okay, this is going to take some thought. Started creating a menu of things. When I came back the next summer, I was a little bit better. Open shots, not miss open shots. Be able to shoot it with speed, because those kids are so much more athletic. So it's a simple thing of math. If you want to be a great player, if you play every single day, 2-3 hours, every single day, over the course of a year, how much better are you getting? If you're obsessively training 2-3 hours every single day, over a year, over 2 years, you make quantum leaps. Show up every single day, do the work. They're looking at me as if, okay, this kid's soft, right? He's from the suburbs of Philadelphia. They felt like they could try to be physical or try to intimidate me and do all this other stuff, which they couldn't. Now I'm saying, okay, well, you're trying to attack me, how am I going to attack you? One of the things I would do is, while everybody would be at the cafeteria work, you know, eating and doing all this other stuff, I'd just go back to the gym. Yeah, I may be from the suburbs, but you're not going to outwork me. Right, look at things at their smallest. Because a lot of times the game starts moving really fast. But if you train yourself to watch hours and hours of film, the game's not moving that fast anymore. I mean, it's an obsessiveness that comes along with it. You want things to be as perfect as they can be, understanding that nothing is ever perfect. But the challenge is try to get them as perfect as they can be. So how can we teach our children what it means to work hard? Well, you do it through training. Right? So when I get up in the morning, my daughter goes with me. 4 a.m., my 15-year-old goes with me. It becomes a daddy-daughter thing. Through that process, she understands the value of hard work. So it's through those behaviors is where I find the motivation to do it.
But what does losing feel like to you?
It's exciting because it means you have different ways to get better. There's certain things that you can figure out that you can take advantage of, right? Certain weaknesses that were exposed. There are answers there if you just look at them. It's a constant process. It's exciting when you win, it's exciting when you lose, because the process should be exactly the same. The hardest thing is to face that stuff. I think it's the fear of starting anew. When you play for 20 years, I played for 20 years, you reach a certain level, you're like, okay, wait a minute, I have to start again at the base of a mountain and try to climb the top of this mountain, first of all, what mountain am I climbing? I don't even know, like, what the hell am I going to be doing? The thing that helped me actually was hurting my Achilles, because that forced me to sit there and say, okay, the day could be today that your career is over. First question I asked, which is the wrong question, is what's the biggest industry I can get into? I said, okay, stop thinking of it that way. You're thinking of it the wrong way. Why did you start playing basketball? Because I loved it. All right, what do you love to do? Oh, well, I love to tell stories. All right, let's do that. I think stories is what moves the world. Nothing in this world moves without story. And so I think that is the root of everything. And if we're going to try to make the world a better place, story is the right place to start. From one of my English teachers at Lower Merion named Mr. Fisk. He had a great quote that said, rest at the end, not in the middle. That's something I always live by. I'm not going to rest, I'm going to keep on pushing now. There are a lot of answers that I don't have, even questions that I don't have. But I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep going, and I'll figure these things out as we go, right? And you just continue to build that way. So I try to live by that all the time.